Now, to a subject that does get a lot of people, going, frankly, crime. Crime in England and Wales is falling, but most people think it's rising, in fact. A new study from King's College London has found that people also tend to overestimate how many people have been victims of crime. And foreign nationals are assumed to account for around twice the proportion of offenders that they actually make up, if you see what I mean. Bobby Duffy is Professor of Public Policy and Director of the Policy Institute. Bobby Duffy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jane.
How many people did you speak to exactly?
It was actually two studies, one of about 2,000 and one of about 2,500. So quite a big sample, a representative cross-cut of the UK public.
Right. All ages, all ethnicities?
Yeah. Representative.
Right, okay. And actually that's important because people, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, people of the same age tended to think along similar lines. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. There is an age gradient to this where older groups tend to be more concerned about crime and tend to overestimate the levels of crime more. But I mean, the big picture is this does cut across every group, really. So on average, we think 27% of people in 2025 were victims of crime, which is almost 3 times the reality of 9.7%. And it is that sense of it getting worse that stands out the most and is not justified by the actual trend. So 8 in 10 of the UK public think mobile phone thefts have increased since 2010. Around 6 in 10 think that each of vehicle-related crimes and burglary have increased, but all of those are down by 50% or more over that sort of time period.
Right. I mean, that's an astonishing improvement. Why don't we celebrate that?
It's a really good question. And it's a kind of mix. When I talk about people's misperceptions, it's a kind of mix between how we think and what we're told. So we know that humans have a negativity bias where we pay more attention to negative information, and that's not a dumb fault of our brain because negative information is often threat-based, so it pays to pay attention to that type of information, and that's kind of in our long evolutionary past. But it also means that the media, social media, politicians know that we pay more attention to those types of things, so we tend to get fed more of that sort of information. So the old cliche that if it bleeds, it leads is a cliche for a reason.
Right.
That is a feature of the types of coverage that people will see.
And I think it's fair to say that a lot of women are very nervous, perhaps, walking around last thing at night. And statistically, isn't it true that actually women are safer last thing at night than young men?
Yeah, that is right. But I mean, we asked directly about that. So in our study, 39% of the public will say they feel unsafe walking alone in their area after dark, and it is higher among women. But the actual guess among the public, we think that 60% of the population would say that they feel unsafe. So even on that perception of safety, we think other people are more worried than they actually are, which again is one of the features of this, is we think the norm is higher crime rates, and we think the norm is to be more scared than people actually are, which is a real shame because it does affect quality of life. We know from lots of the academic work that an overblown sense of fear about crime does affect what people do. They do go out less, and it does affect their levels of anxiety. Obviously, some caution is wise, but the academics talk about dysfunctional fear of crime, where it's actually hurting us rather than helping us.
Most people, and it's understandable, have focused on this statistic from your research. The public wrongly assume most people convicted of homicide are from an ethnic minority. Now, just talk us through that.
Yeah, so 64% of those who are convicted for homicide are actually white. But the public's median guess, so their average guess, is that that's just 45%, while we think that the ethnic minority share is 55%, when the reality of that is it's 35% among ethnic minorities. So we are hugely overestimating the proportion of murders, and not just murders, other types of offences too, that are committed by ethnic minorities or people born abroad. And this will be a reflection of some of those effects of what we're told, that you'll see an awful lot of coverage, particularly in social media, that focuses on the crimes that are committed by particular groups, and that will influence people's perceptions of the realities.
Can I bring some comments to you from listeners? Vanessa says, and this is lived experience, Vanessa's experience. I live on a housing estate. Our friendly local, not drug dealer, lives 3 doors down, and that's just in this block. Nobody reports him because we all know that they'll tell us it's the council's responsibility, and the council will say it's the police's responsibility. And Vanessa sounds as though she's somewhat disenchanted. What do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is the reality, is that, and why we've got such a focus on it is because those types of experiences really do have a big impact on people's lives, and they need to be taken seriously, and we need better responses to them. I guess the point, though, is that while they are real, the trends that we're seeing overall across the whole country is down on those types of poor experiences that people are having, and I think that is important too. We need to hold on to that sense of reality, and that things can improve. Not at all to pretend that everything is perfect, but also not to lose hope that we can change things for the better.
What about David's point? I think a lot of people will have thought this when they heard you mentioning it, Bobby. David says we're not overestimating. 35% is vastly out of proportion to the ethnic minority population. This is in terms of the homicide figures. What do you say about that?
Yes, that is true. I mean, it's not vastly out of proportion. It's 64% white people committing homicides when the proportions of the population are more like 80, early 80s%. So it is out of proportion. It is different. But that is still the estimates, that the average estimates that people come up with are still a long way from those realities, where we think it's a 55% share for ethnic minorities when it's 35%. That's still quite a gap.
Right. Sarah says the data misses unreported crime or so-called victimless crime. For example, littering and shoplifting, both rife. I've witnessed so much shoplifting recently, it simply isn't reported. They just walk out. They'll never appear in statistics, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And our country's covered in litter, but prosecutions are rarely brought. Again, considered victimless and not part of recorded crime. Hair coursing, rural theft and criminal damage often go unreported by busy farmers. What about that?
Yeah, two really good separate points within that. The first, on shoplifting. Shoplifting is recorded in crime statistics by the police, and we did actually ask about that in the study, and that shoplifting is up really substantially in the UK, and the public have an accurate perception of that. So we are getting the right message on that. The public are getting the right message on that, and that is a serious issue. And it sort of relates to the second point, which is that in some ways, that lower level disorder and bad behavior, like the antisocial behavior point, with the littering that was also made, does change people's perceptions of how in control we are of our country. So there is a lot of truth in that. When I did a study on misperceptions of crime back in the 2000s, and what we found from that was really people's fear was mostly driven by that much lower level antisocial behavior than serious crime. So that is a real concern, and something we need to deal with better.
I mean, it is all about lived experience, isn't it? And I don't know you, Bobby, but I'm guessing that you are. Well, I can see you on the screen in front of me. You are a white, middle-class man. I don't know, in your 30s. Have you ever been a victim of crime?
And that's so lovely to say. I'm in my 50s, Jane.
Oh, well, yeah. What are you using, Bobby? I need to know.
It's just a very heavy filter on the camera. Well, exactly. I mean, I've lived in London for 30 odd years, and I've seen it improve, I think, over that time, where I did actually feel quite at risk of crime at various points in that experience. But yes, no, our personal experience does shape our views of this. When I think of people's perceptions and misperceptions, that is an important part of it. The sort of area you live in, your direct experience, what you hear from families and friends, all of those things are really important.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, echoing something said by one of the listeners there, that I have witnessed shoplifting. And look, I don't want to sound like some pearl-clutching old bat, but there is something discombobulating about it, actually. It's unpleasant. You just think, oh, everyone else is abiding by the rules. Why are you doing that? And they do get away with it.
Exactly. I think that's the signal it sends is, do the rules still matter to people? And that's why dealing with those lower level but still, serious crimes, actual crimes, is really important, because it's unsettling to see it, it's unsettling to be involved, but also sends a message that we haven't quite got control of things.
Right. Did you answer my question about whether you'd been a victim of crime?
A long, long time ago. It's been a long time. Yeah.
Right. And it's not something that dictates the way you live your life now?
No, I mean, I do. I think in the academic terms, I think I have a functional fear of crime, in the sense that I do take precautions and I am careful where I go, and careful how you behave in different places. But I don't feel an overweening sense of concern or risk about crime, even though I do live in a fairly, very urban area. So no, it's not at all to say that some level of fear of crime, concern about crime, is always bad, but it is getting it in proportion.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time this afternoon. Bobby Duffy, Professor of Public Policy and Director of the Policy Institute. I've got to say, I've lived in London for 30 years, and I'm just trying to think, apart from having my purse nicked once, I know you shouldn't say this, I'm just touching MDF there, I have never been a victim of crime either, apart from that. And to be fair, I was a mug. I was out in Covent Garden with a bag with my purse quite prominently displayed. Doesn't excuse the person who stole it, but I should have known better.